Last week, we talked about doing a heart check. And we talked about that at some point we have all gone to the doctor, and what is one of the things that they do? They listen to your heart. They check your pulse. They're checking your blood pressure. They're checking these things. I'm going to give you some stats, or not stats, but here are 7 things that the American Heart Association says that you should be doing to have a healthy heart. Number 1, avoid smoking and using tobacco products. Number 2, be physically active every day. Number 3, eat a heart-healthy diet. Number 4, have a healthy weight. Number 5, manage your blood pressure. Number 6, control your total cholesterol. And number 7, keep your blood sugar healthy. These are the 7 things that they say that help you to have a healthy heart. Now, when you're younger, you don't have to plan so much. You don't have to be so intentional about this. Hopefully, you just have a healthy heart because you're young. But as you start to get older and you start to get in life a little bit more, you have to be intentional if you want to have a healthy heart. Something else that we need to be intentional with is our finances. If we want to have healthy finances, then we have to be intentional with that. It takes time. It takes practice. It takes steps, things, actions that we have to do to be able to have healthy finances. Intentional living comes from intentional spending. Intentional living comes from intentional spending. Now, I want you to turn to your neighbor and say, take a deep breath. We already took the offering, okay? This isn't one of those, we're going to pass the tithe thing around again, and we're going to keep passing it around until you put more in there. It's nothing like that. This isn't a guilt trip. This isn't anything like that. But what this is that God has a way that he wants us to live intentionally, especially when it comes to our finances. And I know some of we get uptight when it comes to money. All right, how many of you get uptight when it comes to money? Be honest, you're in church. There's way more of y'all. Y'all are lying in church. Now, here's the deal. Your finances are between you and God. Your giving is between you and God. So why are we talking about this? Because God wrote a lot about it. Do you know that there's over 2,000 scriptures in the Bible that deal with finances and possessions? Whether you like money or not, or material or not, or possessions or not, it is a part of life, and how we use it is important. God has given us some biblical principles so that we can live freely, but it takes us living intentionally with our finances. In America especially, we have gotten a lot of things out of line. I'm going to read some stats here. This came just from the first quarter of 2025. 1/3 of Americans report that they are struggling or are in crisis with their money. 53% of Americans say they live paycheck to paycheck. 1/3 of Americans have paid a bill late in the last couple of months. 58% say they are not optimistic about their financial future. 58%. 6 in 10 adults report that they worry about their finances daily. Daily. Stats also show us that in those couples who are getting divorces, 4 out of every 10, finances is a major contributing factor. Our finances are important. How we use it, what we spend it on is important. God wrote a lot about it, and so we are going to talk about it. The first point is this, is that we need to learn to calculate the costs before you spend. Let's just get it out there. How many of you are bad with math? All right, I appreciate that. I appreciate honesty. We got to learn to calculate the cost before we spend. Jesus tells a story in Luke chapter 14, verse 28. But don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there's enough money to finish it? Otherwise, you might complete only the foundation before running out of money, and then everyone would laugh at you. They would say, there's the person who started that building and couldn't afford to finish it. Jesus is telling us that, hey, we need to calculate the cost before we agree to something. Calculate the cost before we agree to sign our name for this payment or this mortgage or this car payment, whatever it may be. Have we calculated the cost? Because oftentimes we haven't. So then we get ourselves in a situation like, what do I do now? I can't really make that payment. I can't really do this. We as a church, this is something that we have to practice. We calculate the cost. What is it going to cost for us to do that event? Or what is it going to cost for us to do that activity? Or what is it going to cost to do church revitalization? I'm excited to tell you that all the revitalization things that have been ongoing, that we have calculated the cost. We're not going into debt for any of that, and that the Lord is providing for that. But here's how we have to do that. We have to calculate the cost. That means that we've met with contractors. We've met getting different bids for different types of materials, making a plan, going, hey, what is this type of flooring? What is that type of flooring? Hey, what do we need to do on the walls? What about lighting? What about acoustic treatment? All of these things. Counting the cost, because we don't want to start a project that we could never finish. So we also have to go, hey, what's our top priorities? Not like, hey, just what's the wants, but hey, what are the needs? Let's hit our priorities. And then calculating the cost. Okay, do we need to do this in phases so that we can get these things done? If you haven't peered through the glass doors, you should peer through in the glass doors over in the commons. We're not quite operational over there yet, but it's looking good over there. We got a few more things to go, but we'll be excited when we get to open that up. But I tell you all that because we need to calculate the cost. Do we know what it actually costs us to do that? Jesus is teaching those around him, hey, you got to plan ahead and you got to budget so that at the end of it, you don't go, oh, we actually can't do that. Calculate the cost. Have you counted the cost of what it is to actually buy a house? And now I'm not talking about your mortgage payment, but what about your homeowner's insurance? Or what about your utilities? The first house that my wife and I had bought years ago, well, we lived in a desert area, and we bought that house, and it was a 2-story house, and again, we lived in the desert area, and we did not calculate the cost of what it would be for air conditioning in the summer. And how many of you know when you live in the desert, you need some air conditioning, all right? And so it was one of those like, oh, we got to learn the hard way on that one. Maybe you have had your eyes on a brand new vehicle and you were so excited about it. You have calculated it out. You think that you can make that monthly payment or whatever it's going to be. You're excited for it, but you didn't count the cost of what it would be to insure that nice new fancy car that has all of those gadgets and gizmos. And so now you got to insure that thing. And now that's several $100s more than you. Or maybe you didn't calculate the cost of what it would actually be to put fuel in that thing and actually drive it around. We have to calculate the cost so we don't end up in a situation where we can't really afford it. Some of us, we need to calculate the cost of the vacation that you're planning for, you're thinking about going on. And if you haven't done, hey, like, what's the math going to be on this? Hey, how much is it going to be to stay there? Hey, what about food every day? Like, you got to calculate that stuff out. What a lot of people do in America is just like this. Hey, we're going on vacation. Just put it on the credit card. We'll figure it out afterwards. Well, you'll be figuring it out for a long time afterwards. Right? Some people approach Christmas the same way. Hey, Christmas comes every year. It's not a surprise. But we don't calculate the cost ahead of time. We haven't been saving for it ahead of time. And so when the time comes and the bills come and you're like, oh, I guess we'll be paying for this until next Christmas. Like, you have to calculate the cost. For some of us, some of the other things that sometimes we don't always calculate the cost. This isn't a knock on anybody. But maybe if you have kids in club sports, there's a cost to like the monthly whatever, have your kid in that sport. Get it? Maybe you're like, yep, we got that. We can do that. But then there's additional costs that maybe you haven't calculated in, such as how much is it going to cost for you to drive to that thing every week that's in a different city, hours away? How much is it going to cost for you to spend on food or to spend on a hotel or whatever it may be? And so that thing that you thought you could afford, when you actually get to it, you're like, ooh, we can't really do this. There are things that we need to just calculate the cost. Sometimes you can do that by talking to other people who are already doing it. Be like, hey, tell me, what's the real cost of this? Like, what are the things that I wouldn't even know to think about? For some of us, you got an expensive hobby, something that you love, but it's draining your finances. So are you calculating the cost? Now, again, if you have calculated the cost, you got room for it, great, awesome, do it. But if you haven't calculated the cost, what's the impact on your family? Is it taking food from your family? Or now you're having to put everything on a credit card just so you can buy food for your family? There's an old saying that says this: when we fail to plan, we plan to fail. Is it 5? I mean, I can't count. 6-letter word. A 6-letter word that many of us struggle with. You know what that word is? Budget. Budget. Do we have a map or a budget that tells where our finances to go? A map is somewhere that tells you that, hey, we're going here, we're going here, we're going here. This is the directions that we get to go here, right? What happens for many people is that they have not created that map, and so they're lost financially. They're not following a map. Maybe you've been in one of these where you're like, I don't understand. Like, we make decent money. Where's it all going? Maybe you've had one of those conversations. Well, you got to make a map. You've got to assess so that you can make a plan of where you want to go. Sit down, look at your bank statement, see how much you're spending on housing, see how much you're spending on food, on entertainment, whatever it may be. Calculate the cost so you know, hey, if we can go that way or not. Figure out what's more important to you. Is that car more important than, going to the movies 4 times a month or whatever? I mean, if you go to the movies 4 times a month, that's a lot. Anyways. But you got to look through some of these things. You got to work through these things. Create a map, create a budget so you know where you're trying to go. We're going to put on the screen just a basic budget. You can take a picture of this if you want. This is kind of through a lot of different things online that you could find. This is the range that they say to be healthy is. Now, it depends on where you're at in life. Depends if you're, just starting out. Depends if you have kids, not. If you're getting closer to retirement, all those types of things. But something to consider. But you got to have a budget. You got to have a map, because far too many of us, we're just lost financially. And especially if we're buried in debt, we get this like, how do I get out of this? What's next? I'm only digging the hole deeper. We got to create a budget. We got to create a map to get out. Now, I want you to turn to your neighbor. I got 3 words I want you to tell them, and these are the 3 words. I want you to look them dead in the eyes. Tell them, act your wage. Act your wage. Now, what do I mean by that? There are far too many people who do not act their wage. They choose to live like a king and a queen. They are living it up. They're driving that car with that $1,000 payment, and they make $30,000 a year. That's not acting your wage. You have to act your wage. Too many people, well, I want this, I want that, You are not acting your wage. And then you get people who are doing things and they don't even have a job. They don't got a job and they're not acting their wage. If you don't have a job, how can you afford to do that? Act your wage. Too many people, they're trying to jump up in the level of life and jump up in but your finances have not taken that jump. Act your wage. And you're like, yeah, but my family, they're doing this, they're doing that, or my buddy, my friend, they got this new thing. I want one. Act your wage. If you aren't rolling in the dough, don't act like you're rolling in the dough. And can I just tell you, those people who typically are rolling in the dough, they actually live very modest lifestyles. That's how they got to rolling in the dough. We've got to learn to act our wage, right? For some people in this room, every time you drive by a Starbucks, you are drawn. There is an attraction. There is a magnetism that pulls you in, that if they don't take $20 out of your checking account, that something is wrong. But again, if you're making $30,000 a month, that's not acting your wage. A month, sorry. You definitely could be going to Starbucks if you were making $30,000 a month. Let me rewind. Good catch, dear. Good catch. For some people, here's just a small thing that could change your life in acting your wage. Stop eating out every day for lunch. Oh, stop eating out act your wage. You can't afford to go out to lunch every day. Go back to grade school, pack your sack lunch and go. Make it every day. Oh, I don't want to. Act your wage. It's okay. Too many people, we want to act like we're big time. Right? We've got social media and there's always this comparison. Well, look what they're doing. Look what, fancy trip they went on, or look at the clothes they're wearing, or look at this or that. Can I tell you, most of those social media influencer people, they're all faking it. They're all up to their eyeballs in debt and trying to project something. They're not even acting their wage. They're trying to fake it to that wage. Act your wage. 1 Timothy 6, verse 6. Yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. After all, we brought nothing with us when we came into this world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. So if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. Can I tell you, one of the things that has really messed up America is that people are not content. It's always this comparison. Oh, I got to have that. Oh, they got that toy now. They got that car now. They got this house now. Oh, I want to be like them, or I got to do better than them. And we just this back and forth, and we're not content with the provision that we have in our life right here and now. And we're not willing to do the work that it's going to take to get to where we want to go. So we want to take shortcuts that aren't short. You may get to the thing. You may get to the new, car or whatever, but now you're up to your eyeballs in debt. You can't afford to put food on the table for your family. Act your wage and learn to be content with what God has given you right here and now, right? I get it. I'm sure we would all like to have a really, really nice fancy car, but maybe that's not in your wage right now. Maybe you got a car that you pray and you anoint it with oil by putting it in every day so that you get from A to Z, right? And that's your wage, okay? Act your wage for now. Or, hey, you're planning, you're trying, you're digging out of debt. Then, hey, you're making a choice that, hey, I'm not going to waste money on a car right now. I've got to get out of debt, so I'm doing these other things. So, yes, I will anoint it with oil every day so that I can get to where I need to go. Act your wage and be content with what you have. The next point is this: save your wage. Look at the person next to you, say, you need to save more. Proverbs 21:20 says it this way: the wise have wealth and luxury, but fools spend whatever they get. Fools spend whatever they get. A great place for everybody in here, if you have not yet done this, is you need to start to save. You need to have some sort of an emergency fund, whatever that may be. If that's $1,000, what is that emergency fund so that when something goes wrong, when the car breaks down, whatever it is, there's something to pull from so you don't have to put it on a card. You also need to save for future things, whether that's the birthday or whether that's Christmas or vacation or that big ticket item that you've always wanted. We'll save for it. Maybe hey, we got to save. We got to start planning for our kids to get to college or whatever it may be. Start saving your way there. Proverbs 13:11 says this, wealth from get-rich-quick schemes quickly disappears. Wealth from hard work grows over time. Typically, people who are financially well off, they have grown over time. They've grown over time. They just didn't do something, show up someday, and like, bam, now they got all this money. They have saved over time and gotten there. Wealth grows steadily with wise management. So when we live below our means, we're building slowly, and that honors God. The next point is this: we've got to learn to live on a budget. Oh, it's not fun. Nobody wants to live on wouldn't it be fun just to be able to use, your debit card and go anywhere and everywhere and never have to worry about what is in that account? That every time that you go use it, that there is something there to cover it. That would be amazing, but very few of us would be able to do that. Do you live on a budget? There's a story in Genesis 41. Let me give you a little background. This is Joseph. Joseph is talking to Pharaoh. Pharaoh has had these dreams. Nobody else can interpret these dreams. So he goes and he gets Joseph. Joseph had been in prison, but there had been stories of Joseph being able to interpret dreams. And so Joseph is brought before Pharaoh. He tells him the dreams, and then Pharaoh's like, okay, well, what does it mean? And he says, this is what the dreams mean, that you are going to have 7 years of plenty. You're going to have 7 years of abundance. But you are also going to have 7 years of famine. So he tells Pharaoh this, and then Pharaoh's like, well, what should we do about this? So he gives him advice on how to prepare. We're in Genesis 41, verse 34. Then Pharaoh should appoint some supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring it to the Pharaoh's storehouse. Store it away and guard it so there will be food in the cities. That way there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, this famine will destroy the land. So the advice is this: hey, during the 7 good years, you need to take 20% of this abundance, 20% extra of this prosperity, and you need to go put it in the storehouses. If you don't got enough storehouses, you need to make some more storehouses. And one of the words that it says is that you need to guard it. You need to guard it. Don't use it. Put it away, because 7 years of famine is going to be on its way. And if you are not prepared, it will destroy you. This comes back to that living on a budget, where we have to plan ahead, where we have to have that emergency fund, because life isn't always what we think it's going to be. There's going to be seasons. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe there was a medical emergency. There was some sort of bill that you were not prepared for. But if you plan ahead, you can be ready when that comes. I want you to turn to your neighbor and I want you to say this word: no. Now turn back and I want you to say, what you mean no? I want you to imagine if you were living in Egypt at this time. For 7 years, they were in incredible prosperity. Incredible prosperity. Incredible blessing. Every time they were planting something, boom, the harvest would be more than they've even planted. There was blessing upon what they were doing, and there was abundance in what they were doing, but they had to practice this little word, no. Because how many of you know somebody be like, well, why are we putting all this extra over here? I want to eat that. No. Why don't we go sell that? That could be worth a lot of money. Let's go sell it to the other nations so we could gather some more money. No. It's a little word, but for some of us, it's hard to say. It's hard to say no when it comes to money because we have to push off things. You're saying no so you can say yes to the right things. You're saying no to the immediate want or greed or whatever it may be so that you can say yes to the long-term plan, yes to savings, yes to being debt-free. For some of us, this is a word that we need to practice and start using a lot more. You may need to use it with your kids. Every time you go to Walmart does not mean that, hey, you got to get a toy. No. What you mean no? No, we don't have to do that today. Why do we need to buy another toy? I'm going to put it in the pile of other toys that you already have and don't play with? No, we don't need to do that. Hey, why can't we go out to eat every day out of the week? No, that's really expensive. You got to learn to start to have these conversations, even with your kids. Explain to them that, hey, it costs money to do things. Hey, we're saying no to some things right now so that we can plan for that trip that we're going to be going on. We're saying no so we can say yes later. Learn to say no. And I know sometimes there's a pressure. Hey, someone else's family is doing something. Hey, you guys want to come out to eat? And I get it. And you're like, like, I don't want to miss out on that experience. I don't want to miss out on going out with them. And well, then learn to modify, learn to be creative, learn to give some alternatives. You could say no to going out, but hey, why don't we come over to somebody's house? Why don't we just get some pizzas, or why don't we just cook in? That way we can still have the social, experience and get together and the fellowship and whatnot, but we're not having to go broke going out to lunch. Again, this goes back to acting your wage. Sometimes you say no so that you can say yes to what is most important. We need to save so we have something in savings, because your toilet's going to break. Your car might break. You need to have something in there so that when it happens, you have something to use. All right, next point is this: get out of debt. Proverbs 22:7 says it this way: the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. No, that's very harsh, strong language. The borrower is a slave to the lender. Now, maybe you have felt that if you have a lender who's been sending you some lovely things in the mail and calling your phone every day. You need to pay us. You need to pay us. That's not how God wants us to live. He doesn't want us to live in debt. He doesn't want us to live like that. So here's what we got to do. We've got to quit borrowing. For some people, you may need to go to the extreme, and you may need to have a credit card party where you cut them up and throw them away. If you don't have it there, you can't use it. So that way you can get out of debt. Here's the problem with credit cards. You don't feel or see the money coming out of your account. When everybody used to use cash, there was a different experience that you had. Let's say you had $100 in your wallet. Well, if you paid $50 for something, you're like, I only have half left. There was like a visual. We're like, oh, okay, I don't have much left, so I shouldn't spend on XYZ. But now with the credit card, with the debit card, with Apple Pay, with all of these other things that you have, it takes away from that experience of like, hey, where did it just go? So then at some point when you look at the account and you're like, whoa, where did it go? Well, you weren't feeling it along the way. So if you want to go real old school, you could just go to cash, right? There's all kinds of budgeting apps and things that are out there that will help you, that will help you to understand where's the money going, how much have I spent in this category and whatnot. There's lots of tools out there. But here's the problem. We don't feel the expense anymore. One of the things that I'm actually really concerned about for the younger generations that are rising up is most of them don't use cash for anything. They've never had that experience. Everything is a tap. Everything is a phone. So they're not even experiencing that, like, wait, I have less. They're just getting that emotional high of, I spent this, I went there, I did this. Here's another way to get out of debt. I want you to turn to your neighbor and I want you to tell him, you need to sell something. You all got stuff in your house, in your garage, in your attic, in your bedroom that you don't even use. It has value, but you don't use it. It is okay to sell it. It is okay. Put that money towards your vacation. Put that money towards paying off your debt. Put it on Facebook Marketplace. Put it on OfferUp. Do a garage sale. Whatever you need to do, start selling stuff to pay off that debt. For some of us, the easiest way to get out of debt is you either got to do one thing. You've got to earn more money. So you got to work more hours or get a promotion, get a better job, or you got to get a side hustle. What's your side hustle going to be? What's that thing on the side that you're going to generate some extra income so that you can dig yourself out of debt? And you're like, I don't got a lot of time. I don't got this. Well, listen, you're doing it for a season. You shouldn't have to do it the rest of your life if you're digging out of debt. Eventually, you will be out of debt, so you don't have to have that side hustle anymore. But I would encourage you, figure that out. Get some extra income in there so you can pay off the debt. If you want to be financially healthy, it takes you living intentionally. It takes you spending intentionally. As we get ready to wrap up today, in the beginning, I talked about having a healthy heart and how there were 7 things that the doctors say that we need to do, that we have to be intentional about. If we want to have healthy finances, we need to live with intentionality. We need to spend with intentionality. I also want you to hear this. God is not against you having money. He is against money having you. And for far too many of us, the money has us. God's not against money, but he wants us to use it in an appropriate way. Remember last week we talked about where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. God wants your heart. God wants your trust. Are you trusting him? Are you stewarding in the way that he would be proud of? And why do we need to live intentionally? Because when we live with intention, we actually live in freedom. How many of you would love to stop worrying about money? To not have to have the pressure of, am I going to be able to pay the bill? Are we going to be able to put food on the table? Hey, I'm getting that notice in the mail. I'm getting that. The stress, the pressure, the bondage that you're living under. God doesn't want you to live that way. He wants you to live with peace and trusting him. So here's a heart check today. Are you being intentional with what God has entrusted to you? Are you living within your means? Are you saving for your future? And are you giving to what matters most to God? Now, I know some of you in this room today that you are feeling overwhelmed, or perhaps you're feeling embarrassed, or you're feeling ashamed. How did I let myself get into this situation? How did my family get into this situation? And I just want to let you know, first and foremost, we're a family here. There doesn't need to be embarrassment. There doesn't need to be shame. We're here as a family. I already told you the stats in the beginning, but odds are 60% of us in this room are stressed out every day with our finances. I don't stand up here today that, hey, I've had every perfect financial decision that I have made for the rest of our, no, we have made some mistakes along the way. We have screwed up on some things along the way. We've had some emergencies along the way that we were not prepared for. We didn't have savings for. We had some bills that we had no idea were coming, that we were not prepared for, that we now have to go, how do we get out of this? How do we dig out of this? By intentional living. So I want you today, I don't want you to feel shame or embarrassment about this, but I want you to understand is that there is a way forward. There is a way forward. God's word has so much wisdom in it, and we need to apply it to our lives. We need to get into it because God has a right way for us to live. He doesn't want us to live stressed out about money. He wants us to live with peace. So let's follow and do what the word says for us to do.